Equine-assisted therapy is a clinical intervention delivered by a qualified therapist in which a carefully selected and specially prepared equine, together with its movement and environment, forms an integral part of the therapeutic process. Through repetitive, rhythmic, sensory motor and relational input, it supports the development of movement, regulation, cognitive processes, and emotional well-being. It can be applied from as early as 3 months of age.
My name is Vera EAS. I'm a pediatric physiotherapist and I have been working in early intervention for more than 25 years. I'm the chair of Svitani Academy of Equine-Assisted Services and a lecturer. I currently serve as a president of FETI, the Federation of Horses in Education and Therapy International, and as the coordinator of the European Equine-Assisted Therapy Network. Today, I will speak about the application of equine-assisted therapy in toddlers and infants from the age of 3 months within an intensive clinical settings. In the Czech Republic, early intervention for babies at risk is well established. Physiotherapists are highly trained in neurodevelopmental assessment and treatment, and equine-assisted physiotherapy is well integrated within this clinical framework. I would like to focus on two foundational concepts that are essential for understanding early intervention: neuroplasticity and developmental kinesiology. Without these, the therapeutic decisions you are about to see would not be fully understandable. I will present a case study in which you will see real clinical work, my clinical reasoning, positioning choices, progression of therapy, and how theoretical principles are translated into practice.
This is Steven. He is a bright and expressive little boy with a rare genetic condition called Cri-du-Chat syndrome, which affects his development, movement, and communication. When his occupational therapist, Audrey Darby from Irish Equine-Assisted, first met him at just over 2 years old, his abilities were closer to those of a 1-year-old child. He needed a lot of support, had low muscle tone, and had difficulty controlling his posture and attention. At the same time, he was curious, social, and very engaged with people around him. Audrey worked with him regularly using equine-assisted therapy. Even though his attendance was not always consistent, he gradually became more engaged and started to improve his posture and movement. Many children with similar challenges struggle in traditional therapy settings. The equine and its environment can make a big difference. They motivate them and help them participate. When I started working with him, Stephen was nearly 3 years old. He could crawl and stand with support, but he was still unstable and fell often. He had only just started trying to walk while holding hands. In this presentation, I will show you what happened during a 5-day intensive program, what changed afterwards, and how we continue to build on his progress. In the Czech Republic, this type of intensive approach has a long tradition. Short, focused therapy blocks with repeated sessions can create strong changes in a short time. And just to give you a small preview, you will see significant improvement. These results are not rare or accidental, but come from a clear understanding of how the body and movement develop. Neuroplasticity means that the brain can change and adapt through experience. It is not fixed, it is constantly shaped by what we do, feel, and experience. Every time we repeat a movement or have a meaningful experience, the brain creates and strengthens connections. The more something is repeated, the stronger and more efficient these connections become. In early childhood, this ability is at its highest. The brain is developing very quickly, and experiences such as movement, touch, balance, and emotional connection have a powerful effect on how it grows. This is why early intervention is so important. We are not just teaching skills, we are helping the brain build the foundations for movement, attention, and learning. It is also why intensive work can be so effective. Repetition, frequency, and quality of input matter. Short, focused sessions repeated over several days give the brain the stimulation it needs to change. The equine environment is especially powerful in this process. The rhythmic, three-dimensional movement provides continuous input to the body, while the natural setting and interaction create motivation and engagement. Although the brain can change throughout life, the fastest and most significant changes happen in early childhood. Now let us see how this applies to Stephen in practice. Developmental kinesiology explains how movement develops in early childhood. It shows that movement does not occur randomly, but follows a clear natural sequence as the brain matures. A child does not start by standing or walking. First, they develop basic postural control, usually in positions such as lying on their tummies. From there, they learn to support themselves with their arms, then crawl, sit, and eventually stand and walk. Each step prepares the body for the next one. This sequence is important because it lays a strong foundation. If an earlier stage is missing or not well developed, later skills may appear, but they are often unstable or compensatory. In therapy, we do not focus only on the final skill, such as walking. We ask what is missing underneath, what needs to be strengthened first. This approach applies not only to children, but also after injury or illness. When movement is disrupted, we often need to return to the basics and rebuild step by step. When these foundations are properly developed, more complex movement can emerge more easily and more efficiently. You are watching footage from the first session of the intensive block. On the first day, it was clear that Stephen became tired quite quickly, so we allowed him to adjust his position. He lay down briefly and then sat up again. The continuous movement of the pony's back did not allow him to become passive. Even during moments of rest, his postural system was still being gently stimulated. What you see here is not simply weakness. You see an immature postural system. Stephen's posture collapses. His trunk extensors cannot sustain activation. His head control is unstable, and his pelvis does not provide a stable base for movement. His balance reactions are reactive rather than anticipatory. From the perspective of developmental kinesiology, the key issue here is insufficient postural control. Trunk activation, pelvic stability, and coordinated movement patterns are not yet well established. Without this foundation, movement remains inefficient and relies on compensation. Let's look at therapy positions on the equine. Here you see the prone position facing backwards. I use this position very often. I do not use the assisted sitting position where the therapist sits on the equine with the child, as I consider it less effective and not appropriate for the equine. In the prone position, the child stays active. It reflects an early stage of development in which the child learns to control the head and body while supporting themselves on their arms. This position helps strengthen the trunk, improve stability, and encourages active movement rather than passive support. It also supports natural movement patterns that are important for later skills like crawling and walking. We are not just placing the child on the equine, we are working in line with how movement naturally develops, building a strong foundation for more complex skills. With Stephen, I chose a backward sitting position with support on his arms. This reflects a stage of development where a child begins to control the trunk in a more upright position. In this position, the child is active. The arms support the body, the trunk works to stay upright, and the pelvis becomes more stable. This helps build strength and coordination. At the same time, the equine provides continuous movement through space. This creates a dynamic environment where the child must constantly adjust. The movement strongly stimulates the sensory system and naturally increases motivation, encouraging active participation. A common question is whether sitting backwards could affect future walking. In practice, it does not. The body responds to the movement itself, not the direction the child is facing. The same movement patterns are stimulated. We are not teaching the child to move backwards. We are supporting the development of movement patterns that are important for future walking. All of this takes place in a carefully controlled setting, with a trained equine, a qualified team, and a strong focus on safety. By day 3, during the 5th session, something important had changed. Stephen was no longer just reacting. He began to anticipate the movement and adjust his body in advance. His posture became more stable, and he could stay in position for the whole session. We then moved outdoors. The uneven ground naturally challenged his balance and helped his body adapt. We also saw clear changes in his engagement. He became more active, made better eye contact, and showed more interest in his surroundings. He was calm, focused, and even smiled when arriving at the stables. When a child feels safe and motivated, learning becomes much more effective. The equine's movement plays a key role. It provides continuous rhythmic input to the body, supporting posture and coordination. I personally do not know any other rehabilitation approach that offers this level of movement in such a natural environment. Being on the equine also increases motivation. The child sees more, reaches more, and wants to participate. On day 4, we continued working outdoors, and he responded beautifully. You can see how much he is enjoying the experience of riding the hill. By the end of the 7th session, Stephen's balance was noticeably steadier. He insisted on walking up the stairs with his father's support and moving around the yard. It was as if he could not get enough movement, as though his body was ready to explore more. In the photograph, you see him sitting upright on our student's lap, calm and without external support, with his hand relaxed rather than gripping for stability. This reflects a clear improvement in postural control and body awareness, as well as growing confidence in his own movement. Day 5. What you see here is not simply improved muscle strength or better balance. You are seeing more efficient and coordinated movement. This is the true goal of physiotherapy, to create the conditions in which movement becomes spontaneous, efficient, and purposeful, rather than effortful and compensatory. This demonstrates how combining structured clinical expertise with the unique movement of the equine can significantly accelerate functional progress. Five weeks after the intensive block, Stephen's father sent us a video. Stephen was walking as a toddler should. This did not happen during the intervention, but afterwards.
Go in, go, go, go. Yes, Aiden. Good boy. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, my boy. Aiden. Aiden. Woo-hoo-hoo.
This is important. The central nervous system, or CNS, learns in stages through repetition and experience, followed by time to process and integrate. This is why changes do not always appear immediately. In Stephen's case, the improvement came after the intensive week, not during it. The therapy supported what was already developing, helping his body connect and strengthen these abilities. The brain needs repeated, meaningful input, but also time. When the body becomes more stable, new skills can appear, sometimes quickly, sometimes later. At the end of the video, Stephen falls and instinctively puts his hands out to protect himself. This is an important developmental step. Many children with neurological conditions do not show this reaction. Before the intensive week, Stephen did not have it. Its appearance indicates better postural control, faster reactions, and overall CNS development. After August, he continued with weekly sessions with Audrey. These sessions focused on consolidating the gains achieved during the intensive block. This regular work provided continuity, supporting steady progression rather than short-term improvement. During this phase, the priority was integration and stability. In November 2025, Steven participated in another 4-day intensive block. During this period, I introduced side sitting to further challenge and strengthen his trunk. By the end of the block, he was able to sit in a forward position with well-activated and engaged trunk control. Throughout the week, he interacted intentionally, reaching towards us, laughing, and maintaining focused eye contact. The video you are watching shows how he consolidated previously learned skills and began progressing again following this focused input. Although independent walking is not yet fully established, we can clearly observe improved postural control, more mature balance reactions, and more coordinated movement, reflecting ongoing CNS maturation. This experience highlights the clinical value of short, intensive blocks with brief, structured sessions for young children at this developmental stage, followed by periods of consolidation and reduced demand. Focused phases of therapy, combined with time for integration, support continued progress while allowing families to manage daily life without sustained pressure. In this context, it is essential to integrate sound physiotherapy and kinesiology principles into any therapeutic approach with young children. Our primary focus must remain on regulation, postural control, and strengthening the sensory-motor foundations that underpin all functional abilities. The brain develops in a bottom-up manner when we prioritize postural control, balance, reflex integration, and arousal regulation. We create the physiological stability required for higher-level skills to emerge. Abilities such as play, communication, self-care, and learning are not isolated functions. They depend on coordinated movement and a well-regulated system. What we achieve through these short, intensive blocks might otherwise require many weeks of conventional clinic-based physiotherapy. The strength of equine-assisted therapy lies in its ability to consolidate existing capacities and translate them into functional movement. The equine's rhythmic three-dimensional input accelerates this process, helping the CNS transform potential into meaningful action. This is not about replacing traditional therapy. It is about enhancing it. When clinical reasoning, developmental principles, and equine movement come together, we create the conditions for efficient, functional, and sustainable change. As we conclude, let us return to Stephen. What you have seen is not a miracle or a quick fix. It is the result of the right approach, repeated over time, with a clear understanding of how movement develops. Equine-assisted therapy is not about riding. It is about working with the equine's movement to support the child's development. In early childhood, timing is very important. The brain is ready to change, but it needs the right input at the right moment. When we support posture, balance, and basic movement, more complex skills can develop more naturally. Stephen's progress also shows that change does not always happen immediately. Sometimes it appears later, once the body has had time to process and integrate. When this approach is applied with knowledge, care, and teamwork, it can support meaningful progress while keeping the child motivated and engaged. If you are interested in developing these skills, or if you would like your child to participate in an intensive clinic, the Svitany Academy of Equine-Assisted Services offers both opportunities. We provide accredited education for physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, and psychomotor therapists, from strong foundational courses through to more advanced programs, including early intervention. Our aim is to support professionals in developing strong clinical reasoning and practical skills that can be directly applied in daily practice. We also offer international intensive clinics for children and their families. Centers around the world invite us to bring this model into their own setting. These clinics provide high-quality therapy for children while creating a rich learning environment where professionals and students work alongside us, observe, and learn through real clinical cases. A new program that brings both elements together is our family retreat in Crete this October. It offers a unique combination of expert clinical input and dedicated family time, creating space not only for progress but also for shared experience and connection. This integration of education and clinical practice is at the heart of what we do. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this presentation. I hope it has given you a new perspective on what equine-assisted therapy can offer and how it can support the development of young children. Most importantly, I hope it inspires you to think about new ways to improve children's lives and support their movement and overall development. At the same time, it is important to remember that this work must always be carried out by a qualified team with a well-prepared equine and a strong focus on safety. If this approach resonates with you, please feel free to contact us. You can find us on social media, visit our website, or reach out by email at any time.